I abandoned the kids after my wife died. Rachel was gone 3 weeks when I packed a bag and left. Cancer took her in 8 months. One day she was complaining about being tired. Next thing we knew, it was stage 4. The kids were 8 and 5. Jake kept asking when Mommy was coming home from the hospital, even after we told him she wasn't. Sophie just stopped talking for 2 weeks straight. I couldn't look at them. Every time Jake smiled, he had Rachel's dimples. Sophie had her laugh. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. standing in their doorway watching them sleep, and I'd just start shaking. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. So I drove them to my parents' place on a Tuesday morning. Told them it was just for a few days. My mom knew what I was doing. She grabbed my arm and said, "Don't you dare," but I was already backing toward my car. I got in and drove 6 hours to a motel 2 towns over. I got a job at a warehouse, lifting boxes, loading trucks, work that made your body hurt so bad you couldn't think. I sent my parents money every week. 3 months went by like that. Then my brother showed up at the warehouse. Just walked right up to me during lunch and said, "Jake's failing 3rd grade. I told him the school would help." He said Sophie drew a picture of a family. She drew Mom, herself, Jake, Grandma, and Grandpa. You weren't in it. I threw my sandwich in the trash. He didn't leave. Just stood there and said, "Dad had a heart attack scare last week. Mom's watching 2 kids alone while dealing with that. You don't get to hide anymore." That Saturday, I drove back, parked outside my parents' house for 20 minutes before I could get out. Through the window, I could see Jake at the kitchen table doing homework. Sophie was on the floor with crayons. I knocked. My mom opened the door and stared at me. Sophie looked up from her drawing and went back to coloring like I was a stranger. Jake glanced over and said hi, then returned to his worksheet. Not excited, not angry, just hi like I was the mailman. I told my mom I wanted to take the kids home. She asked if I was going to leave again when things got hard. I said no. She asked how she was supposed to believe that. Jake spoke up. "Can we finish dinner here first? Grandma's making pot roast." He wasn't asking to come home with me. He was asking to stay for dinner. My mom told the kids to go play outside. Then she said I could take them back, but if I ever pulled this again, she'd get a lawyer. My dad added that Jake had nightmares 3 times a week asking if I was dead too. I moved them back home that week. Started sitting with Jake every night doing homework. It took 2 months, but his grades came back up. I kept showing up for Sophie, made her lunch, braided her hair even though I was terrible at it. One night, about 4 months later, Sophie crawled into my lap while I was watching TV. She whispered, "Are you going to leave again?" I told her no. She said, "Promise?" I promised. Jake was harder. He just watched me like he was waiting for me to disappear. Every morning, he'd check my room to make sure I was still there. I started leaving my bedroom door open at night so he could see I hadn't gone anywhere. Sophie's in 2nd grade now. She draws families again. I'm in all of them. Last week, she drew one where I was holding her hand and wrote "My Dad" with an arrow pointing to me. I was hanging it on the fridge when my phone rang. Unknown number. A woman from Child Protective Services. She said my mother filed a report 2 days ago. Concerns about my ability to care for the children given my history. There's an evaluation scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9. They'll be interviewing Jake and Sophie separately. I looked at Sophie's drawing on the fridge, then at Jake's backpack by the door. I called my mom. She picked up on the first ring. I asked her why. Long silence. Then she said, "I need to know they're safe. I need to know you won't break again." Her voice cracked. "Prove me wrong tomorrow. The evaluation is in 14 hours. If I don't pass, they could remove the kids. Jake would think I abandoned him again. Sophie would stop drawing families. The caseworker's number was still on my phone screen. My brother's words kept replaying. You don't get to hide anymore. Tomorrow morning, someone walks through that door and decides if I'm enough. If 4 months of homework and braids and promises count for anything. I heard Jake's door open upstairs. His footsteps coming down to check if I was still here. He stood at the bottom of the stairs in his pajamas with the dinosaurs on them. The ones Rachel bought him 2 Christmases ago that were already getting too small. His hair was sticking up on one side. "You're still here," he said. Statement, not a question. "Yeah, buddy, I'm still here." He walked to the fridge and opened it. Stared inside for a full minute without taking anything. Then he closed it and turned to look at me. "Grandma called earlier, before dinner. I heard you talking." My stomach dropped. "Jake, is someone coming tomorrow to see if you're a good dad?" I sat down at the kitchen table. The one Rachel and I bought at a yard sale when we first got married. She'd refinished it herself, sanded down years of scratches and stains. Jake pulled out the chair across from me and sat. "Yeah," I said. "Someone's coming. What happens if they don't think you are?" "I don't know." He picked at a spot on the table where the finish had worn through. Are you gonna leave again if they take us away? They're not taking you away, but if they do. I looked at my 8-year-old son asking me questions no kid should have to ask. If they do, I'll fight to get you back. Every single day until I do. You left before? I know. For 3 whole months. I know. Mom died and you left. The kitchen was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Same refrigerator Rachel used to cover with the kids' artwork. I'd taken most of it down after she died because I couldn't stand looking at it. Sophie's new drawing was the first one I'd put back up. Your mom died, and I didn't know how to be your dad without her, I said. That's not an excuse. It's just what happened. I was wrong. Jake kept picking at the table. Grandma says you were sad. I was. I am. Me too. I know you are, but I didn't leave. That one hit like a punch to the chest. 8 years old, and he understood more about responsibility than I did. No, you didn't. So why did you? I'd ask myself that question every single night for 4 months. In the motel room with the flickering bathroom light. In the warehouse during breaks when I'd sit in my car and stare at my phone. Driving back here that first time, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Because I was scared, I told him. Of messing up. Of looking at you guys and seeing her. Of being the only parent left and not being good enough. Are you still scared? Yeah. But you came back? Yeah. He finally looked up at me. Is that lady tomorrow going to ask me if I want to live here? Probably. What should I say? The truth. What if the truth gets us taken away? I reached across the table. He let me take his hand. His fingers were small and cold. Then we deal with it. But you tell the truth anyway. Always. He pulled his hand back and stood up. Walked to the fridge and looked at Sophie's drawing. She drew you really tall. I noticed. You're not that tall. Thanks, buddy. He almost smiled. Almost. The lady's coming at 9? Yeah. Okay. He headed back toward the stairs, then stopped. Dad? Yeah? I check your room every morning because I had a dream you were dead like Mom, not because I think you left again. He went upstairs before I could respond. I sat at the kitchen table until midnight, making a list of things the caseworker might ask. Then I threw the list away because I didn't have good answers for most of it. At 2 in the morning, I walked upstairs and looked in on them. Sophie was sprawled sideways across her bed, covers kicked off. Jake was on his side facing the door, eyes closed but breathing wrong. The breathing of someone pretending to be asleep. I went back downstairs and pulled out my phone, typed out a text to my mom, then deleted it. Tried again. Deleted it. Finally just wrote, I'm not running. She responded immediately even though it was past 2. Good, see you tomorrow. Wait, what? I called her. She picked up on the first ring. What do you mean, see you tomorrow? The caseworker asked if I'd be present for the evaluation. As the person who filed the report. You're coming to my house? It's procedure. They want to observe the family dynamic. There is no family dynamic with you there. The kids will be confused. Jake already knows something's wrong. Then maybe he'll be honest about how he feels. He's 8. He's old enough to know his father left him. I hung up. Immediately regretted it. Called back. It rang through to voicemail. I tried 3 more times. Nothing. At 4 in the morning, I was still awake, sitting on the couch when I heard footsteps upstairs. Sophie's door opened. She patted down the hallway to Jake's room. Their voices too quiet to make out words. Then Sophie's footsteps coming downstairs. She appeared in the living room doorway, dragging her stuffed rabbit by one ear. Why are you awake? Couldn't sleep. Why are you? Jake's worried. She climbed onto the couch next to me and tucked herself under my arm. She smelled like the strawberry shampoo Rachel always bought. The bottle was almost empty. I'd need to get more. What's Jake worried about? I asked. The lady coming. Did he tell you about that? I heard you guys talking. I wasn't asleep yet. What else did you hear? That you might leave again. I closed my eyes. I'm not leaving again. You said that last time. She said it matter of fact. No accusation. Just a statement of something that had happened. I'm not leaving again. But I had left. Words didn't mean much after that. What can I do to prove it? I asked. She thought about it, picking at her rabbit's worn ear. Stay. I am staying. No, I mean stay even when it's hard. Mom used to say that. When I didn't want to finish my homework or clean my room, she'd say staying with hard things is how you know it matters. I pulled her closer. We sat there until the sun started coming up, turning the living room gray, then pale yellow. Sophie fell asleep against my side. I didn't move. At 7, Jake came downstairs, already dressed in jeans and his shirt with the rocket ships. He saw us on the couch and went to the kitchen. I heard him pouring cereal, the clink of the spoon against the bowl. Sophie woke up when the doorbell rang at exactly 9 o'clock. She sat up fast, confused. Is that her? I looked through the window. A woman in business casual clothing stood on the porch holding a clipboard. Behind her, my mom's car was parked on the street. Yeah, that's her. I opened the door. The woman smiled, professional and distant. Mr. Henley? I'm Desiree Martin from Child Protective Services. We shook hands. She had a firm grip, the kind that's been practiced to convey competence. Come in. My mom got out of her car and walked up the driveway. She didn't look at me, just nodded at Desiree and followed us inside. Jake was standing in the kitchen doorway with his cereal bowl, milk dripping off the spoon. Sophie grabbed my hand. Desiree looked around the living room, taking everything in. The worn couch where Sophie and I had slept. The coffee table with Jake's math homework from last night. The TV with a thin layer of dust because I kept forgetting to clean. The fridge with one drawing. Good morning, Jake and Sophie, she said, her voice gentle. I'm Ms. Martin. I'm here to have a conversation with your family today. Nothing scary, I promise. Sophie pressed against my leg. Jake put his cereal bowl on the counter and crossed his arms. Can we sit down? Desiree asked. We moved to the living room. My mom sat in the armchair. I sat on the couch with Sophie still glued to my side. Jake remained standing near the kitchen door. Desiree pulled out her clipboard and a pen. I'm going to start with some questions for you, Mr. Henley. Then I'll speak with Jake and Sophie separately. Is that all right? Fine. She clicked her pen. Can you walk me through the events following your wife's death? So I did. I told her about Rachel's diagnosis, the 8 months watching her disappear, the kids' confusion, the silence in the house after she died, the way I'd stand in their doorway at 3 in the morning, unable to breathe, leaving them with my parents, the motel, the warehouse job, my brother showing up, coming back, she wrote the entire time, not looking up. My mom stared at the wall. And in the 4 months since you returned, what has your daily routine looked like? I wake up at 6, make breakfast, pack lunches. Sophie's bus comes at 7:45, Jake's at 8. I work 8:30 to 4:30. Pick up Sophie at 3. Jake gets home on the later bus at 4. Homework, dinner, bath for Sophie, bed by 8:30 for her, 9 for Jake. I work from home Wednesday so I can do afternoon pickup for both. Who watches the children when you're at work and they're not in school? My neighbor, Geneva. She's retired. Watches them if they're sick or it's a school holiday. I pay her. How much? $15 an hour, she made a note. And your mother's involvement? She hasn't seen them since I brought them home. Desiree looked up. Is that accurate, Mrs. Henley? My mom shifted in her seat. Yes. Can you tell me why? I needed space to decide if my son was capable of being their father, and filing a CPS report was part of that decision. I needed an objective assessment. Desiree wrote something that took longer than the other notes. Mr. Henley, has there been any concerning behavior from the children? Changes in mood, appetite, sleep? Jake checks my room every morning. Sophie asked me 3 weeks ago if I was going to leave again. Jake's grades dropped when I first brought them back, but they're up now. Sophie stopped drawing for a while, but she started again last week. What made her start drawing again? I don't know. I came home from work and she had papers everywhere. Drew for 2 hours straight? Were the drawings concerning in any way? No, families mostly. All of them had me in them. More notes. She looked at my mom. Mrs. Henley, in your report, you expressed concern about your son's mental state. Can you elaborate? He has a history of running when things are difficult. One time, I said. I ran one time. You left your children for 3 months. I know what I did. Desiree held up a hand. Mr. Henley, Mrs. Henley, let's keep this productive. She turned to my mom. What specific behaviors have you observed that concern you? I haven't observed anything. That's the problem. He won't let me see them. I never said she couldn't see them, I said. She never asked. Because you made it clear I wasn't welcome. You reported me to CPS after you isolated those children. Desiree made a note that looked more like a paragraph. I'm going to speak with Jake now, alone. Mr. Henley, Mrs. Henley, please wait here. Sophie, you can stay with your dad. She stood. Jake looked at me. I nodded. He followed her upstairs to his room. The door closed. The living room was silent except for the clock on the wall, the one that ticked too loud. Rachel always wanted to replace it. We never did, Sophie whispered. Is Jake in trouble? No, baby. She's just talking to him. About you leaving? Probably. My mom spoke for the first time since the questioning started. You should have thought about this before you left. I think about it every day. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you got scared and ran. Now you're back and you want everyone to forget it happened. I don't want anyone to forget. I want a chance to fix it. Some things don't get fixed. Sophie was watching us like a tennis match. I lowered my voice. Can we not do this in front of her? She needs to understand what you did. She was there. She understands. Does she? Sophie, honey, did you understand why your daddy left? Sophie looked at me, then at her grandma. He was sad about Mom. Were you sad about Mom? Yes. Did you leave? No. Why not? Sophie's voice got smaller. Because Jake needed me. My mom looked at me. Out of the mouths of babes, I wanted to throw something. Wanted to scream. Wanted to leave. That's what I'd done before, wasn't it? When things got hard, when the walls closed in, when I couldn't handle it, I left. Instead, I sat there and took it because upstairs someone was asking my 8-year-old son if he felt safe with me, if he wanted to stay here, if he'd be okay if they took him somewhere else. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Jake came down the stairs with Desiree behind him. His face was red. He went straight to the kitchen and I heard the water running. Sophie? Desiree said. Your turn, sweetie. Sophie looked at me. It's okay, I told her. She let go of my hand and followed Desiree upstairs. Jake came back with a glass of water and sat on the floor by the TV. My mom started to say something. I shook my head. She closed her mouth. We waited. This time it was only 15 minutes. Sophie came down holding Desiree's hand. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. She climbed back onto the couch and pressed against me. Desiree sat down and reviewed her notes. The silence stretched out. Finally, she looked up. Mrs. Henley, I appreciate you bringing your concerns to our attention. However, based on my interviews and observations today, I don't see evidence of neglect or inability to parent. The children are clean, fed, attending school regularly, and the home environment is stable. My mom's face went tight. He abandoned them 4 months ago, and he returned. Since then, by all accounts, including the children's, he's been present and consistent for 4 months. What about the next time things get hard? That's not for CPS to determine. Our mandate is current safety and welfare. So you're just going to ignore what he did? I'm not ignoring it. But past mistakes, while concerning, don't automatically disqualify someone from parenting, especially when there's clear evidence of change and commitment. My mom stood up. This is unbelievable. Mrs. Henley, those are my grandchildren. I raised my son. I know what he's capable of, and what he's capable of includes coming back and doing the work. For now, Desiree closed her folder. If new concerns arise, you're welcome to file another report. But based on today's evaluation, I'm closing this case. She looked at me. Mr. Henley, I strongly recommend you consider counseling for yourself and possibly family therapy with the children. I nodded. Couldn't speak. She shook my hand, nodded at my mom. Let herself out. My mom stood in the middle of the living room, hands clenched. I did this for them. You did this because you don't trust me. Can you blame me? No. She picked up her purse, walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the knob. I'll call you tomorrow. Okay, she left. Through the window, I watched her sit in her car for a full minute before starting it and driving away. Jake was still on the floor by the TV. Sophie was still pressed against my side. Nobody moved. What did she ask you? I finally said. Jake shrugged. If I liked living here, if you yelled at me, if there was food in the house, if I felt safe. What did you say? The truth. Which was? He looked at me. That sometimes I'm scared you'll leave again, but most of the time I'm just glad you're here. My throat got tight. Jake, she asked if I wanted to stay with you or go back to Grandma's. I said here. Sophie lifted her head from my shoulder. She asked me the same thing. I said here too. She asked if you were nice to me. Sophie added. I said yes. She asked if you made me dinner. I said yes. She asked if I missed Mom. I said yes. She asked if you helped me miss Mom less. I said no, but you helped me be sad with someone. We sat there for a long time. Eventually, Jake turned on the TV. Some cartoon with loud music and bright colors. Sophie fell asleep against me again. I watched the cartoon without seeing it, my mind replaying everything Desiree had said. Closed case. Evidence of change. Commitment. At noon, I made grilled cheese sandwiches. Jake ate his in 4 bites. Sophie picked the crusts off. The phone rang twice. I didn't answer. My mom probably, or my brother. I'd call them back later, or tomorrow, or never. That night after the kids were in bed, I sat at the kitchen table and made a list of therapists. Found 3 that took our insurance, sent emails to all of them. Then I went upstairs and stood in Jake's doorway. He was reading under the covers with a flashlight. You're supposed to be asleep, I said. So are you. Fair point. I sat on the edge of his bed. He put the book down. Are we in trouble? No. Is Grandma mad? At me, yeah. Not at you guys. Why did she call that lady? Because she loves you and wants to make sure you're okay. Are we okay? I looked at my son in his two small dinosaur pajamas, holding a flashlight and a book about dragons, asking me if we were okay. I think we're getting there. How long does getting there take? I don't know, buddy. Mom used to say good things take time. Mom was right about a lot of things. He picked at the corner of his book. I miss her more at night. Me too. Does that ever stop? I don't think so. I think it just gets different. He thought about that. Different how? Less like drowning. More like carrying something heavy that you get used to holding. That sounds hard. It is. But we're doing it. He nodded and pulled the covers up. I stood to leave. Dad? Yeah? Thanks for coming back. I turned off his light and left the door open. Down the hall, Sophie's room was dark except for her nightlight. The one shaped like a star that Rachel bought when Sophie was afraid of the dark at 3 years old. I stood in her doorway like I used to, but this time I could breathe. The next morning, my mom called at 7. I almost didn't answer. Then I did. I'm sorry, she said. I sat down at the kitchen table. Okay, I needed to know they were safe. They're safe. I know that now. Do you? Long pause. I'm trying to. That's all I'm asking. Another pause. Can I see them this weekend? I looked at the calendar on the fridge. Saturday had nothing written on it. Saturday afternoon. Come for dinner. Thank you. She hung up. I made breakfast. Jake came down and ate cereal without saying anything. Sophie wanted toast with butter and cinnamon. I made it. We ate. They went to school. I went to work. At lunch, my phone buzzed. Email from one of the therapists. She had an opening Thursday at 4. I took it. Then I texted Geneva asking if she could pick up the kids that day. She said yes. Thursday came. The therapist's office was in a building downtown with a waiting room that smelled like vanilla. The receptionist gave me forms. I filled them out. Name, date of birth, emergency contact. Reason for visit. I wrote grief counseling, then crossed it out and wrote dealing with loss and parenting. The therapist's name was Dr. Kim. She was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s with glasses and a cardigan. Her office had a couch and a chair. I sat in the chair. Tell me why you're here, she said. So I did. I told her about Rachel, about leaving, about coming back, about the CPS evaluation and my mom's doubt and Jake checking my room every morning, about Sophie's drawings and how I didn't know if I was doing any of this right. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "What does doing it right look like to you?" I don't know. Not leaving again. Being there. Helping them not be so scared all the time. Are you scared? Every day. Of what? That I'll mess this up. That I'm not enough. That they'll never really trust me again. Do you trust yourself? I hadn't thought about it like that. I don't know. That's honest. Let's start there. We talked for 50 minutes. She gave me homework. Write down one thing each day that I did right as a parent. Just one thing. Didn't have to be big. Then she asked if I'd consider bringing the kids in for family sessions. I said I'd think about it. Drove home. Geneva had fed them dinner. Jake was doing homework. Sophie was watching TV. Everything normal. Everything fine. That night, I started the homework. One thing I did right today. I made it to therapy. That counted, right? I wrote it down. The next day, I packed both kids' lunches. Day after that, I helped Sophie with her spelling words. Day after that, I didn't yell when Jake spilled juice all over the kitchen floor. Small things. But they added up. Saturday, my mom came for dinner. I made spaghetti because it was easy and both kids ate it. She brought cookies, the kind with M&Ms that Sophie loved. We sat at the kitchen table and it was awkward but not terrible. She asked Jake about school. He told her about his science project on volcanoes. She asked Sophie about her drawings. Sophie showed her the one from the fridge and 3 more from her room. After dinner, the kids went to watch TV. My mom and I did dishes. They seem good, she said. They are. You seem good, too. I'm working on it. She handed me a plate to dry. I was scared after you left. I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking about them asking where you were. Jake would cry and say he wanted his dad. Sophie stopped eating for 3 days. I put the plate down. I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't undo it. I know. So what does? This every day. Showing up, she nodded. Keep showing up then. She left at 8. The kids went to bed at 9. I wrote in the journal. Today I let my mom back in. That counted. 2 weeks later, I brought Jake and Sophie to therapy. Dr. Kim had a different room for kids with toys and art supplies. She talked to them separately first, then together. Then all 3 of us sat on the floor, and she asked them to draw something that made them happy. Sophie drew our house with all of us in front. Jake drew a baseball game we'd gone to last summer with Rachel. Dr. Kim asked Jake about the drawing. He said it was his favorite day. She asked why. He said because everyone was together and happy. She asked if he could have days like that again. He looked at me and said he didn't know. We went back every Thursday. Slowly things shifted. Jake stopped checking my room every single morning. Some mornings he did, some he didn't. Sophie asked fewer questions about if I was leaving. Not zero questions, but fewer. 3 months after the CPS evaluation, my mom started coming for dinner every Saturday. Sometimes my dad came too. He'd had another heart scare, but he was okay. He and Jake started building model airplanes together at the kitchen table. Sophie would sit with them and hand them pieces. 4 months after the evaluation, Jake's teacher called. She wanted to talk about his progress. I thought something was wrong. She said no, she just wanted to let me know he'd brought in a family photo for Student of the Month. The photo was one I'd taken last weekend at the park. All of us, including my parents. She said he'd told the class, "This is my family. We're smaller than we used to be, but we're still together." I cried in my car in the school parking lot for 10 minutes. 5 months after the evaluation, Sophie stopped asking if I was going to leave. Just stopped. One day I realized she hadn't asked in 2 weeks, then 3, then a month. 6 months after, Jake came home with a permission slip for a 3-day school camping trip. He handed it to me and said, "You have to sign it." Not asking, telling. Like he knew I'd still be here when he got back. I signed it. 7 months after, I went to parent-teacher conferences. Both kids were doing well. Jake's teacher said he'd really come out of his shell this year. Sophie's teacher said she was a joy to have in class. As I was leaving, Sophie's teacher stopped me and said, "I don't know what your family's been through, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it." 8 months after, I took the kids to visit Rachel's grave. We hadn't been since the funeral. Jake brought flowers he'd picked from Geneva's garden. Sophie brought a drawing she'd made. We sat on the grass and I told them stories about their mom. Funny ones. Sad ones. True ones. Jake cried. Sophie held his hand. I cried too. On the drive home, Jake said, "I'm glad we went." "Me too. Can we go again?" "Whenever you want." 9 months after, my mom stopped asking if I was okay every time she saw me. She just assumed I was. That felt like progress. 10 months after the evaluation, Jake started sleeping through the night. No more nightmares. Or, if he had them, he didn't come get me. 11 months after, Sophie drew a picture at school for Mother's Day. Her teacher sent it home with a note. She'd asked Sophie if she wanted to make one, knowing her mom had passed. Sophie said yes. She drew Rachel as an angel with wings. Underneath she wrote, "My mom is in heaven, but my dad is here." The teacher's note said she thought I should see it. I hung it on the fridge next to all the others. 1 year after the CPS evaluation, Desiree called. I saw her name on my phone and my stomach dropped. She said she was checking in, policy for closed cases. She asked how the kids were doing. I told her about Jake's grades, Sophie's drawings, therapy, my mom's Saturday dinners. She said she was glad to hear it. She said most parents in my situation didn't turn it around. She said she'd been hopeful when she'd closed the case, but hopeful wasn't the same as certain. She said she was certain now. Before she hung up, she said, "Your son told me something during the evaluation. I think about it sometimes." "What did he say?" I asked him if he thought you'd leave again. He said he didn't know, but he knew you came back the first time, so maybe you'd come back again if you did. That's not confidence, but it's something. It's a foundation. What is it now? You'd have to ask him. That night at dinner, I did. "Jake, if someone asked you today if you think I'm going to leave again, what would you say?" He looked up from his spaghetti. I'd say no. Yeah, you're not going anywhere." Sophie nodded. "You promised." I did promise. "And you don't break promises anymore." Jake added, "I'm trying not to." "You haven't yet." That felt like the best thing anyone had ever said to me. 14 months after the evaluation, I stopped counting. Stopped marking time by the worst thing I'd ever done. Started marking it by the things I did right. Jake made the school baseball team. Sophie learned to ride a bike without training wheels. My dad's health stabilized. My mom smiled more. I got a promotion at work. Small things that added up to a life. Rachel would have been proud of them. I thought that sometimes. Watching Jake pitch during a game or Sophie pedaling down the street, her hair flying behind her. Rachel would have been proud. I didn't know if she'd be proud of me. Probably not for leaving. Maybe for coming back. Definitely for staying. That was enough. 2 years after the evaluation, Jake stopped checking my room entirely. I didn't notice at first. Then one morning I realized he'd walked right past my door without looking in. I waited to see if it was a one-time thing. It wasn't. He just stopped. That night I asked him about it. He shrugged. "I know you're here. How?" "I just do." Sophie was sitting at the table doing homework. She looked up. "Because you're always here. Always is a long time." "So?" she said, and went back to her math problems. "So, 3 years after the evaluation, my mom told me she was sorry for doubting me. We were sitting on my back porch watching the kids play in the yard. She just said it out of nowhere. 'I'm sorry I didn't believe you could do this. You had reasons not to.' I did. But I was wrong. You were scared. I was. But you were scared too, and you still came back. We watched Jake push Sophie on the swing set. Her laughter carried across the yard. I didn't know if I could do it," I admitted. "When I came back, I just knew I had to try. That's all any of us can do." The swing creaked. Sophie yelled for Jake to push higher. He did. My mom reached over and squeezed my hand once, then let go. We sat there until the sun went down and I had to call the kids inside for dinner. 4 years after the evaluation, Jake graduated from elementary school. He gave a speech at the ceremony. He'd written it himself, hadn't shown me beforehand. When he got to the microphone, I was terrified he'd freeze. He didn't. "The last few years have been hard," he said, reading from a crumpled paper. "My mom died when I was in 3rd grade. I failed a bunch of tests. I was really sad for a long time. But my dad helped me, and my grandma and grandpa, and my sister, even though she's annoying." The audience laughed. Sophie crossed her arms. "I'm going to middle school now," Jake continued. "And I'm not scared anymore. Well, I'm a little scared, but the good kind of scared. The kind where you don't know what's coming, but you know you'll be okay anyway." He looked right at me during the last line. I was crying. My mom was crying. My dad was crying. Sophie rolled her eyes and said, "Everyone's so emotional." After the ceremony, we went out for ice cream. Jake got chocolate. Sophie got strawberry. They argued about which was better. My mom told them they were both wrong. Mint chip was superior. We sat in a booth and ate ice cream, and it was normal and boring and perfect. That night, Jake asked if he could keep his graduation speech. I said of course it was his. He folded it carefully and put it in his desk drawer. "I want to remember this," he said. "Remember what?" "That I was scared, but I did it anyway." "You did? Like you." I sat on the edge of his bed. "Like me? You were scared to come back, but you did it anyway." "Yeah, I was. And now you're not scared anymore?" "I'm still scared sometimes. Just not of the same things." "What are you scared of now?" "Messing up. Letting you guys down." "You won't." "You sound pretty sure." "I am." "You haven't yet." He turned off his light. I left the door open and went downstairs. Added to my journal. Today Jake graduated. Today Jake wasn't scared. Today Jake believed in me. 5 years after the evaluation, Sophie started middle school. She was nervous. Jake was in high school now, too cool to be seen with his little sister. She came to me the night before and asked, "What if nobody liked her?" "Someone will like you." "How do you know?" "Because you're smart and funny and kind. And if somehow nobody sees that right away, you wait. The right people always show up eventually." "Is that what happened with you and Mom?" "Yeah, that's exactly what happened." She seemed satisfied with that. The first day of school, she came home and said she'd made 2 friends. Their names were Ivy and Lamar. They sat with her at lunch. She seemed proud of herself. "See," I said. "The right people showed up. You were right. Don't sound so surprised." She grinned and went to her room to call Ivy. I heard her laughing through the door. 6 years after the evaluation, Jake got his driver's license. I took him to the DMV. He passed on the first try. On the drive home, he asked if he could drive. I said yes. He adjusted the mirrors, put on his seatbelt, checked his blind spots. Did everything exactly right. We drove around town for an hour. He was a good driver, careful, responsible. When we got home, he parked in the driveway and turned off the car. "Thanks for teaching me." "You did all the work." "Still, thanks for being here to teach me." He went inside. I sat in the passenger seat for a few minutes, looking at the house. Our house. The one I'd almost lost because I'd been too scared to stay. The one I'd fought to come back to. The one that was full of noise and arguments and laughter and life. 7 years after the evaluation, my dad died. Heart attack, quick, he didn't suffer. We buried him next to Rachel. The kids took it hard. Jake stopped talking for a few days. Sophie cried herself to sleep every night for a week. My mom moved into a smaller place, said the house was too big without him. We went through it again. The grief, the loss, the hole that doesn't get filled just slowly becomes part of the landscape. But this time I didn't leave, I stayed. I sat with Jake in his silence. I held Sophie while she cried. I helped my mom pack up the house and sort through 40 years of marriage. One night, about a month after the funeral, Jake came into the kitchen while I was doing dishes. "You didn't leave this time. I turned off the water." "No, I didn't." "Why not?" Because I promised I wouldn't. And because I learned that leaving doesn't make it hurt less. It just makes you hurt alone. He nodded, grabbed a towel and started drying dishes next to me. We didn't talk, just stood there doing dishes together. When we finished, he hung up the towel and said, "I'm glad you stayed." "Me too, buddy." 8 years after the evaluation, Sophie started high school. Jake was a senior, already looking at colleges. They barely spoke to each other at school. At home, they fought about bathroom time and whose turn it was to do dishes and what to watch on TV. Normal sibling stuff. The kind Rachel would have complained about but secretly loved because it meant they were okay. I started dating someone. Her name was Finley. She was a teacher at Sophie's school. We met at parent-teacher conferences. She asked me out for coffee. I said yes. It felt strange at first, disloyal somehow, but Jake said, "Mom would want you to be happy." And Sophie said, "Is she nice? Does she like dogs?" And my mom said, "It's been 8 years. Rachel would kick your ass if she knew you were still alone." So I went out with Finley. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into weekends. She met the kids after 3 months. They liked her. She didn't try to be their mom. She was just Finley, present and kind and patient with all of us, still figuring things out. 9 years after the evaluation, Jake graduated high school. He'd gotten into 3 colleges. Picked the one 4 hours away. Far enough to be independent, close enough to come home if he needed to. We moved him into his dorm on a Saturday in August. Sophie cried the whole drive home. "Why are you crying?" I asked. "Because now it's just me. Just you and me. And Finley sometimes. It's different." "Yeah, it is. I don't like it." "You will, eventually." She didn't believe me. But 2 months later, when Jake came home for fall break, she complained that he was in her space and taking up the bathroom. She'd adjusted. 10 years after the evaluation, I stopped writing in the journal. Not because I'd stopped doing things right, but because it had become automatic. I didn't need to write it down anymore to believe it. Sophie was 15. Jake was 19. My mom was healthy. Finley and I had been together for 2 years. Life was good. Not perfect. We still had hard days. Days where I missed Rachel so much I couldn't breathe. Days where Jake called from college homesick and overwhelmed. Days where Sophie slammed doors and yelled that I didn't understand her. But I stayed for all of it. The good days and the hard days and the boring days in between. I stayed. 11 years after the evaluation, Finley and I got married. Small ceremony in my backyard. Just family and close friends. Jake was my best man. Sophie was her maid of honor. My mom cried through the whole thing. After the ceremony, Sophie pulled me aside. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Yeah, I am." "Good. You deserve to be happy. So do you." "I am. Most of the time. Except when Jake's home and he eats all the good snacks." She hugged me, quick and tight, then ran off to dance with her friends. I watched her go. Watched Jake talking with Finley's parents. Watched my mom laughing with Geneva. Watched all these people who'd stuck around through the worst of it celebrating the good. 12 years after the evaluation, Jake graduated college. Got a job in marketing. Moved into an apartment with 2 roommates. Called every Sunday. Sophie was applying to colleges. Stressed about essays and test scores. I helped where I could, mostly by just listening and making sure she ate something other than chips for dinner. 13 years after the evaluation, Sophie left for college. 3 hours north. She cried when we left her in her dorm. So did I. The house was quiet without her. Too quiet. Finley suggested we get a dog. We adopted a mutt from the shelter named Roger. He filled some of the quiet. 14 years after the evaluation, my mom had a stroke. Minor. She recovered. But it scared all of us. Reminded us that time was still moving, still taking things. Jake and Sophie both came home that weekend. We sat in the hospital room, all of us, and my mom looked around and said, "This is a good family." "It is," I agreed. "You did good," she told me. "We did good." She smiled. "Yeah, we did." 15 years after the evaluation, I thought about calling Desiree. I wanted to tell her that Jake had a good job, that Sophie was thriving in college, that my mom was healthy, that Finley and I had built a life together, that the kids were okay. More than okay. They were happy. I wanted to thank her for closing the case, for giving me a chance to prove I could do this, but I didn't call. Because it wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was just about living. Instead, I pulled out the old journals from that first year. Read through all the entries. The one thing I did right today lists. I packed lunches. I helped with spelling words. I didn't yell. I showed up. I stayed, small things. But they'd added up to this. To Jake calling every Sunday. To Sophie texting me photos from college. To my mom's stroke scare bringing us all together instead of breaking us apart. to a family that was smaller than it used to be, but still whole. I closed the journal and put it back in the drawer. Tomorrow, Jake was coming home for the weekend. Sophie was bringing her new boyfriend to meet us. My mom was coming for Sunday dinner. Finley was making her famous lasagna. Roger would bark at everyone and beg for scraps. It would be loud and chaotic and normal, and I would be there for all of it, because that's what I did now. I stayed.